Hey, so last night we did a White Burgundy class that was awesome, but there were a lot of people that wanted to come to it but couldn't make it. The wait list was actually pretty huge. So I got the bottles from last night here, so I'm just going to do a 5-minute version of the Puligny-Montrachet, Chassagne-Montrachet, and Meursault class that we did last night. All right, here we go. Here's Meursault, here is Puligny-Montrachet, and here is Chassagne-Montrachet. In the Côte d'Or and the Côte de Beaune, the southern half of Burgundy, they are arranged like this, north to south. Meursault, Puligny, Chassagne, and they're all right next to each other. So they all actually touch each other, just like that. So what's really interesting about this is that you have neighboring villages, and within our tasting we actually had the same vintage, same producer, Puligny and Chassagne from Francois Collion. I think that's how you pronounce it, Collion. And then Meursault from Bouchard-Pierrefitte. And so what was really neat about the class is that tasting the fresh vintage stuff, they all showed correctly. They all showed the way they should. And that means Meursault tends to be a little bit more rich, round, voluptuous, rounded corners, more mouthfeel, a little bit more body. I described it last night as kind of the gateway wine for California Chardonnay drinkers going into Burgundy. So if you're into a little bit more oak presence or oak texture, I should say, Meursault is a really good way to go. It's not that they use a lot of oak there, but the style of the wine tends to be a little bit creamier. You go just south, neighboring village, Puligny-Montrachet. Puligny-Montrachet is floral. Puligny-Montrachet is bright, clean, lifting, completely vertical in its flavor, whereas Meursault kind of goes down into the depths. And then Chassagne-Montrachet, south of Puligny, touching it actually, is right down the middle of the tracks. Chassagne-Montrachet is very much so in between these two in styles, but ironically the furthest south of the three villages. So it was a really cool lineup. So we had 3 wines that were fresh and new. Then we did 3 wines from the same villages, but all 2009. This 2009 was an incredible vintage in Burgundy, but it was incredible in the sense of richness and opulence. It was a vintage that a lot of American wine writers loved because it kind of reflected the energy and the richness that you find in a lot of California wines. So it was fun to have the 2009 Meursault from Vincent Girardin, and it showed the way it should, which means a little bit fatter and richer is what Meursault does, a little bit lower in acidity, and it didn't age quite as well. It tasted like it was about a year or 2 past its peak. Still tasted good, but it tasted a little bit past its peak. Then we went to the Francois Collion, same producer as the first plate here. So we had the Puligny-Montrachet 2014 from him and the 2009. 2009 was incredible. This was the wine of the night. This is the wine that has come together perfectly. With 8 years on the vintage, what's happened with that wine is that it's kind of like making soup or pot roast or chili. Just a little bit of time in the bottle made everything kind of come together, but you get the Puligny-Montrachet floral acidity, and it was just spectacular. That thing was just incredible. And then lastly, we finished off with the Vincent Girardin Chassagne-Montrachet Premier Cru Meursault. And so this is the only Premier Cru in the entire lineup, and that one was incredible. That one is aged beautifully as well, tasting great. All the wines run somewhere in kind of the $60 to $80-ish range, give or take a little bit, but it was an incredible lineup and a great education on Meursault, Puligny-Montrachet, and Chassagne-Montrachet. That's the big trifecta. If you ever have a chance to taste those 3 villages side by side, do it, because it's a wine education incarnate, perfect example of what you can learn, but at the same time, they're just really damn good wines. So that's the entire class in a nutshell. I wish you were there. I'll raise a glass to you a little bit later on. I think I've got just a touch of Meursault left. Bye.